She'll be out on the street, Mark sneers, his voice dripping venom by the infinity pool. Amina Okoro, Silicon Valley's Black Queen, steps silently into her glass mansion, fresh from a global summit, her tailored blazer sharp as her mind. The San Francisco Bay glitters below, but her heart lurches at the sight of Mark, arm around Chloe Vance, Nexus's cunning marketing director, their wine glasses clinking. Hidden behind a pillar, Amina hears their plot to steal her billion-dollar empire and cast her out. Her Nigerian roots pulse, her mother's words, lead, never follow, ignite her resolve. Will Mark and Chloe's greed blind them to the nightmare Amina, unyielding and fierce, is about to unleash? Their downfall looms, a reckoning only she can deliver. Amina Okoro's breath caught, a sharp hitch in the perfumed dusk, as Mark's words slithered through the air. She'll be out on the street. The infinity pool's glassy surface mirrored the San Francisco Bay's dying light, but the chill in her veins outfroze the evening breeze. Hidden behind the sleek pillar, her tailored blazer felt like armor, yet her heart thudded traitorously. Mark's arm draped over Chloe Vance, their silhouettes entwined against the water's edge, wine glasses glinting like daggers. Amina's fingers tightened around the silver band in her pocket, its worn edges a tether to her Nigerian roots, to her mother's fierce whisper, lead, never follow. She forced her eyes to stay dry, her mind slicing through the fog of betrayal with surgical precision. Mark's laugh, low and smug, curled around Chloe's murmured reply. I can't wait to see her face when she's got nothing, Chloe purred, her bikini-clad form leaning into him, her voice dripping with venomous glee. Amina's pulse roared, but her face remained a mask of stone. Every word they spoke was a brick in the wall of their treachery, each syllable cementing her resolve. Her shares go to our Delaware Shell Company, Mark continued, his tone as polished as his Patek Philippe watch. The Black Queen will be dethroned, and I'll finally step out of her shadow. Chloe's fingers traced his chest, her giggle a blade to Amina's pride. You're a genius, Mark. Nexus will be ours. Amina's mind raced, cataloging their plan with the same clarity she used to code Nexus's revolutionary AI neural network. A Delaware Shell Company, a rigged equity restructuring, her founder's shares, her life's blood, siphoned into their greedy hands. They didn't just want her wealth, they wanted her erased, her empire stripped, her legacy reduced to a footnote. The audacity of it burned, but it was the personal betrayal that cut deepest. Mark, the man she lifted from obscurity, the man she'd trusted with her dreams, now plotted to cast her out. Her fingers grazed the diamond ring on her left hand, a glittering lie beside the silver band's honest weight. She stepped back, her heels silent on the polished concrete, retreating from the pool's betraying glow. The mansion's glass walls reflected her silhouette, a black queen framed against the city she'd conquered. She slipped into the master bedroom, the door clicking shut like a guillotine. Leaning against it, her breath came in shallow bursts. The silver band pressed into her palm, and her eyes fell on a framed photo of her mother in Lagos, her braids tight, her gaze fierce. A memory surged. Amina at 12, sitting cross-legged on a woven mat, her mother's hands deftly braiding her hair. Child, you're born to lead, her mother had said, her voice a melody of strength. The world will try to dim your light. Don't let it. A single tear escaped, tracing a hot path down Amina's cheek. She wiped it away with a trembling hand, the tear a fleeting guess before her resolve snapped back. Cold and unyielding. Her mind shifted gears. The tech mogul's brain that had built Nexus from a dorm room dream to a billion-dollar titan taking over. She pulled her phone from her blazer, activating its recording app with a swipe. The poolside voices drifted through an open window, Mark's arrogance and Chloe's malice captured in crisp clarity. We'll throw a gala to celebrate, Chloe was saying, her voice thick with anticipation. Nexus under our control, Amina out in the cold. Mark chuckled. She'll be begging for scraps while we run her empire. Amina's jaw tightened, her fingers steady as she saved the file. Evidence? A weapon. The first move in a chess game they didn't know they'd already lost. She moved to her desk, the room's minimalist elegance a stark contrast to the chaos in her chest. Her laptop hummed to life, and she opened a secure channel to David Chen, Nexus's chief counsel, a man whose loyalty was as sharp as his legal mind. "David," she typed, her words clipped, "urgent meeting tomorrow. Bring the COO contract." She paused, her cursor blinking like a heartbeat. "And a divorce attorney." The silver band felt heavy in her pocket, a reminder of who she was. Not just Amina Okoro, tech titan, but Amina, daughter of a Nigerian matriarch who taught her to fight. Mark and Chloe thought they could steal her throne, but they'd underestimated the fire in her blood. Outside, the pool's water lapped softly, oblivious to the storm brewing within her. Amina stood, her reflection in the glass door, a portrait of defiance. She was no victim, no pawn to be discarded. She was the architect of Nexus, the woman who'd turned code into power, who'd faced down boardrooms of skeptics and emerged victorious. Mark's betrayal was a wound, but it was also a spark. Chloe's greed was a miscalculation, one they'd pay for dearly. Amina's lips curved, not in a smile but in a promise. They wanted her empire? They'd get a nightmare instead, a reckoning delivered by a black queen whose light no one could dim. As the city's lights twinkled below, Amina's mind mapped her next moves. The recording was her sword, David her shield. Mark and Chloe's gala would never happen. She'd ensure they faced the ruin they'd planned for her, their dreams of wealth crumbling like ash. Her mother's voice echoed again. "Lead, never follow." Amina straightened, her blazer falling perfectly around her shoulders. The game had begun, and she played to win. The dawn broke over Los Altos hills, casting a golden sheen across the mansion's glass facade. But Amina Okoro's heart burned with a fire no sunlight could warm. She stood in the kitchen, her silhouette sharp against the marble counter, the aroma of Ethiopian coffee curling through the air. Sleep had eluded her, her mind a whirlwind of Mark's venomous words. "She'll be out on the street," and Chloe's cruel laughter. The silver band, her mother's legacy, rested in her pocket, a quiet anchor grounding her fury. Amina's face was a canvas of calm, her eyes dark pools of calculation as she prepared to face the traitor who shared her bed. Mark's betrayal was a blade, but she wielded a sharper one: control. Mark entered, his Armani suit pristine, his smile a practiced mask of devotion. He carried a tray with her favorite coffee, the beans' rich scent a mockery of their fractured bond. "Morning, love," he said, his voice smooth as the Napa Valley Cabernet he'd shared with Chloe. "You must be exhausted from the summit." He set the cup before her, his fingers brushing hers with calculated warmth. Amina's skin prickled, but she returned a smile, her lips a crescent of deception. She sipped the coffee, its bitterness mirroring the truth she now carried. The recording on her phone, tucked securely in her blazer, was a ticking bomb, and she was its detonator. Tayo Adeyemi, Amina's assistant, breezed in, her tablet glowing with Nexus's latest metrics. A young black woman with a Nigerian lilt in her voice. Tayo's presence was a spark of kinship in the sterile kitchen. "Morning, Miss Okoro," she said, her eyes bright with admiration. "The AI launch projections are stellar." She hesitated, glancing at Mark, then added softly, "I saw Mark and Miss Vance working late last week. Said it was a marketing campaign." Her words hung, a subtle thread Amina seized. Her gaze flickered, but she kept her voice even. "Thank you, Tayo. Send me the projections." Tayo nodded, her intuition a silent ally, and left the room, her footsteps a soft echo. Mark slid an iPad across the counter, its screen displaying the Nexus Forward initiative. His eyes gleamed with a predator's confidence, unaware of the trap he'd already sprung. "This is it, Amina," he said, leaning forward, his tone urgent. "The initiative will lock in our lead, streamline capital, outpace rivals. Just need your e-signature to seal the deal." His words were honeyed, but Amina heard the poison beneath. A plan to siphon her founder's shares to a Delaware shell company, to strip her empire and leave her begging. Her fingers grazed the iPad, her diamond ring catching the light, a glittering lie beside the silver band's truth. She scrolled through the document, charts and jargon flashing across the screen, a labyrinth designed to deceive. Her mind, honed by years of coding Nexus's AI, saw through the veneer. "Impressive," she said, her voice a velvet blade. But you know me, Mark. I don't sign anything without David Chen's review. Mark's smile stiffened, a crack in his facade, but he recovered swiftly. Smart move, love. Can't be too careful. His eyes betrayed a flicker of unease, a prey sensing the hunter's gaze. Amina's heart thrummed, not with fear but with the thrill of the game. She was no longer the wife he'd underestimated. She was the Black Queen he'd dared to betray. As Mark sipped his coffee, prattling about boardroom strategies, Amina's thoughts turned to her mother's lessons in Lagos. She saw herself at 16, sitting under a mango tree, her mother's voice firm. The world will test you, Amina, but your strength is in your roots. Those roots, Nigerian, unyielding, now fueled her resolve. Mark thought he could dim her light, but he'd forgotten the fire that built Nexus from a dorm room dream to a global titan. The recording in her pocket was her first weapon, but her mind was the arsenal. She pictured David Chen, his legal acumen a fortress, ready to dismantle Mark's contract with the morality clause she'd insisted on years ago. Tayo returned briefly, handing Amina a folder with the AI projections. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Two Black women navigating a world that often overlooked them. "Stay sharp, Tayo," Amina said softly, her words a nod to their shared heritage. Tayo's nod was firm, her loyalty a mirror to Amina's own. Mark, oblivious, checked his watch, his impatience a telltale sign. "We need to move fast," he pressed, his voice tightening. "The investors are waiting." Amina's smile didn't waver. "Patience, Mark," she said, her tone a quiet storm. "Good things come to those who plan." She stood, her blazer falling perfectly around her shoulders, and moved to the glass door overlooking the city. The bay's light shimmered, a canvas of her triumphs. Mark's plot was a wound, but it had awakened a predator. Chloe's greed, Mark's arrogance. They'd built their dreams on her empire's foundation, but she'd tear it down beneath them. Her phone buzzed with a confirmation from David. "Meeting set. Bring the evidence." Amina's lips curved, not in warmth, but in anticipation. The kitchen's calm was a facade, a stage for her first countermove. Mark and Chloe thought they held the board, but Amina was the grandmaster, and their checkmate was coming. Amina Okoro's Tesla sliced through San Francisco's morning fog, its sleek hum a counterpoint to the storm raging within her. The city's skyline loomed, a testament to her conquests, but her mind was a battlefield, replaying Mark's venomous words and Chloe's cruel laughter. The silver band in her pocket pressed against her thigh, a Nigerian talisman grounding her fury. She parked outside David Chen's law office, its glass walls a mirror to her resolve. Inside, she moved with the grace of a predator, her tailored blazer a suit of armor. David, sharp-eyed and loyal, rose from his desk, sensing the gravity in her stride. Amina didn't sit. She stood, her presence filling the room, a Black Queen ready to reclaim her throne. She slid her phone across the desk, the recording app open. "Play it," she said, her voice low, a blade wrapped in silk. David pressed the screen, and the poolside voices crackled to life. Mark's smug drawl, "Her shares go to our Delaware shell company," and Chloe's vicious glee, "She'll be out on the street." David's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as the plot unfolded. Amina watched him, her face an unreadable mask, but her pulse thrummed with the weight of betrayal. "They want my empire," she said, her tone icy. "They think they can erase me." David leaned back, his fingers steepled. "They've underestimated you, Amina. Badly." She paced, her heels clicking like a metronome of vengeance. "Nexus's AI neural network launches in weeks," she said, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. "It's not just tech. It's the future of global healthcare. If Mark and Chloe succeed, they'll gut it." She stopped, her eyes locking with David's. "I won't let them." Her words carried the weight of her Nigerian roots, the unyielding spirit of her mother's lessons under Lagos's mango trees. "The world will test you, Amina, but your roots are your strength." That strength now fueled her, a Black woman who'd built an empire against all odds, now facing its gravest threat from within. David opened a file, Mark's COO contract, its pages crisp with opportunity. "The morality clause," he said, tapping a highlighted line. Any action harming Nexus's interests, financial, reputational, or strategic, triggers immediate termination. No stock, no severance. Amina's lips curved, a ghost of a smile. Plotting to steal my shares counts as harm, doesn't it? David's nod was firm. It's a slam dunk. We can freeze his company assets by noon. Amina leaned forward, her diamond ring glinting, a reminder of the life Mark had betrayed. And Chloe, she asked. David's eyes gleamed. Her contract's weaker. One email, and she's out. Amina's mind raced, mapping the chessboard. Divorce papers, she said, her voice a quiet thunder. Infidelity and fraud. I want them filed today. David scribbled notes, his pen a weapon in her arsenal. We'll need the recording as evidence, he said. It's airtight. Amina nodded, her thoughts drifting to Tayo's subtle hint in the kitchen. The young Nigerian woman's intuition a spark that had fanned her suspicions. She'd thank Tayo later, perhaps with a promotion, a nod to their shared heritage. For now, every move had to be precise, a symphony of retribution orchestrated by a queen who'd never bow. The office's glass walls reflected the city's pulse, a mirror to Amina's own. She saw her mother's face in her mind, braiding her hair under Lagos's stars, saying, "Lead, never follow." That mantra had carried her through boardrooms that doubted her, through investors who questioned her vision. Mark had been there in those early days, a partner she'd lifted to COO, only to have him sharpen a knife for her back. Chloe's greed, her taunt of leaving Amina out on the street, was a miscalculation born of arrogance. They thought her trust was weakness, her empire a prize to plunder. They'd learned the cost of crossing a black queen. David pulled up a draft email, the termination notice for Mark, its language cold and final. We can execute this today, he said. The board will back you once they hear the recording. Amina nodded, her eyes on the city beyond the glass. Do it, she said, and freeze every asset tied to him. Accounts, stock options, the Tesla. She paused, her voice dropping. I want him to feel what it's like to have nothing. The words weren't vengeance. They were justice, forged in the fire of her pain. David's fingers flew across his keyboard, the plan taking shape. Tayo's voice crackled through the intercom, announcing her arrival with Nexus's latest AI metrics. Amina gestured for her to enter, and Tayo stepped in, her tablet glowing. Ms. Okoro, the projections are even better than expected, she said, her Nigerian accent a soft echo of Amina's own. Their eyes met, a silent bond of sisterhood. Thank you, Tayo, Amina said, her tone warm but firm. You've been invaluable. Tayo's smile was brief, but it carried pride, a young woman seeing her future in Amina's strength. As Tayo left, Amina turned back to David. Mark thinks he's playing me, she said, but this game ends with his checkmate. The city's skyline shimmered, a canvas of her triumphs. Amina's heart, once fractured by Mark's betrayal, now beats with purpose. She was no longer just the woman he'd underestimated. She was the architect of his downfall, a black queen wielding her empire's might. The recording, the contract, the law, they were her weapons, but her mind was the battlefield where she'd win. Mark and Chloe's gala would never happen. Their dreams of her ruin would become their own. As David finalized the documents, Amina stood, her reflection in the glass a portrait of power. The war had begun, and she was its commander. Mark Thompson leaned back on the plush velvet couch in Chloe Vance's San Francisco condo, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop through floor-to-ceiling windows. Champagne fizzed in crystal flutes, the bubbles catching the chandelier's glow like tiny stars in their grasp. His Patek Philippe watch gleamed as he raised his glass, his smile a crescent of triumph. To our empire, he toasted, his voice rich with the arrogance of a man who believed he'd outwitted a titan. Chloe, draped in a silk robe, clinked her glass against his, her eyes alight with greed. To Amina's fall, she purred, her words a venomous hymn. They laughed, their voices intertwining, oblivious to the storm Amina Okoro was unleashing across town, her black queen's resolve sharpening like a blade. Chloe sipped her champagne, her manicured nails tracing the glass's rim. I'm tired of her shadow, she said, her tone sharp with resentment. Always the black queen of Silicon Valley, lording over us, I deserve the spotlight. Mark nodded, his jaw tight. He saw himself years ago, standing in Amina's shadow at her COO announcement, her brilliance dazzling investors while he forced a smile. The memory stung, a boardroom packed with suits, Amina at the helm, her Nigerian fire commanding every eye while he lingered, a prop in her story. She thought she could outshine me forever, he said, his voice low, bitter. Soon I'll be the one signing the deals, running Nexus. Their condo was a shrine to ambition, all sleek lines and modern art, a stark contrast to the glass and steel mansion where Amina now plotted. Mark swirled his champagne, envisioning the Delaware shell company that would hold Amina's founder's shares, her empire stripped away. The Nexus Forward initiative is perfect, he said, his smirk widening. Buried in jargon, it'll slide right past her. She'll sign, and we'll have it all. Chloe leaned closer, her silk robe slipping to reveal a shoulder. And when she's out on the street, begging? She asked, her eyes gleaming. Mark chuckled, a sound cold as the city's fog. We'll throw a gala to celebrate. Nexus ours, Amina nothing. Their laughter echoed, a reckless symphony of hubris. Mark pictured Amina's face, crumpled in defeat, her diamond ring pawned, her legacy erased. He'd spent years playing the devoted husband, enduring her boardroom triumphs while his ambition festered. She'd lifted him to COO, but every accolade she earned felt like a slight, her Nigerian grit a reminder of his inadequacies. Chloe, with her sharp mind and sharper claws, was his escape, a partner who saw his potential, not Amina's shadow. She called me her partner, he said, his voice mocking, but I was never her equal in her eyes. Now I'll take what's mine. Chloe stood, pacing to the window, the city's lights a canvas for her dreams. I've spent months crafting Nexus's image, only for her to take the credit, she said, her voice tight. I'm done being her understudy. With her shares, we'll redefine this company, our way. She turned, her smile predatory. Imagine it, Mark. You as CEO, me reshaping the brand. Amina will be a footnote. Mark joined her, his hand grazing her waist. And this condo will be a starter home, he said. We'll take the Los Altos Hills mansion, too. Their laughter rose, a toast to a future they believed was certain. Across town, Amina's resolve burned brighter than their delusions. The silver band in her pocket, a Nigerian heirloom, whispered her mother's words. Lead, never follow. She'd built Nexus from a dorm room dream, coding through nights when Mark slept, her Nigerian fire turning algorithms into power. Mark's betrayal was a wound, but Chloe's complicity was a spark. Amina's mind flashed to Tayo Adeyemi, her assistant, whose subtle hint in the kitchen had been a lifeline. Tayo, a young Nigerian woman, carried the same fire, her loyalty a mirror to Amina's own. Amina had texted her earlier, a simple message. Stay sharp, we're moving. Tayo's reply, always Miss Okoro, was a vow of allegiance. Mark poured another round, his confidence unshaken. The board will eat this up, he said, gesturing to an imaginary crowd. They'll see me as the savior, not her. Chloe nodded, her eyes alight with visions of power. And when we launch the AI neural network under our names, she said, the world will forget Amina Okoro. Their glasses clinked again, the sound a hollow echo of their greed. They didn't know Amina's phone held their voices, their plot captured in damning clarity. They didn't know David Chen was drafting termination notices, his legal mind a guillotine poised to fall. They saw only their victory, blind to the Black Queen's wrath. The condo's opulence mocked their fleeting triumph. Mark's watch ticked, each second a step closer to ruin. Chloe's silk robe shimmered, a veneer of elegance hiding her malice. They planned their gala, their speeches, their reign, unaware that Amina's war room was alive with action. Her email to David had been sent, her strategy set. The morality clause, the asset freeze, the divorce papers. They were arrows in her quiver, each aimed at their hearts. Her mother's voice rang clear. Your roots are your strength. Amina's roots, Nigerian, unyielding, would bury them. As Mark and Chloe toasted, the city's lights flickered, a warning of the storm to come. Their dreams were a house of cards and Amina was the wind. The Chandelier Light of Aura, San Francisco's 3 Michelin-star sanctuary, danced across Mark Thompson's Patek Philippe watch as he fidgeted, his polished exterior betraying a flicker of impatience. The restaurant's opulence, marble floors, velvet drapes, hummed with the murmurs of elite diners, but Mark's focus was singular, Amina's signature, the key to his stolen empire. He adjusted his tie, his smile a practiced weapon, anticipating a victory toast. Across town, Amina Okoro's Tesla had just pulled away from David Chen's office, her war room plans locked tight, termination notices, asset freezes, divorce papers. The silver band in her pocket, her Nigerian mother's legacy, pulsed like a heartbeat. She was no longer Mark's wife. She was a black queen, poised to deliver a nightmare. Amina stepped into Aura, her white jumpsuit a stark contrast to her ebony skin, its tailored lines commanding the room like a throne. Heads turned, whispers trailing her. Silicon Valley's titan, the black woman who'd built Nexus Innovations from code and grit. Her diamond ring glinted, a lie she'd soon discard, while the silver band's weight grounded her. Mark rose, his grin wide but brittle, unaware of the guillotine she carried in her leather portfolio. "You're stunning, love," he said, his voice smooth as the Napa Valley Cabernet he'd shared with Chloe. Amina's smile was a blade, her eyes dark pools of knowing. "Thank you, Mark," she replied, her tone velvet over steel, seating herself with regal calm. The waiter poured sparkling water, its bubbles hissing like the tension between them. Mark leaned forward, his fingers drumming lightly on the tablecloth. "David cleared the Nexus Forward initiative, right?" he asked, his eyes gleaming with predatory hope. "It's a game changer, secures our future." Amina's lips curved, a cryptic promise. "David was thorough," she said, her voice low, each word a step toward his ruin. She sipped her water, her gaze never leaving his, reading the cracks in his facade. Mark's confidence held, but his fingers twitched, betraying a man who sensed the ground shifting beneath him. The restaurant's hum faded, their table a battlefield. Amina's mind flashed to her mother's words in Lagos, under a mango tree shade. Lead, never follow. That Nigerian fire had fueled her through sleepless nights coding Nexus's AI, through boardrooms that doubted her blackness, her womanhood. Mark had stood beside her then, or so she'd thought, his charm a prop she'd mistaken for loyalty. Now his betrayal, plotting with Chloe to steal her shares, to cast her out, ignited that fire anew. She saw Tayo Adeyemi's face, her young Nigerian assistant, whose quiet hint had sharpened her suspicions. A text from Tayo buzzed her phone. "Files sent to David. Ready when you are." Amina's heart steadied. She wasn't alone. Mark pushed the iPad across the table, its screen glowing with the Nexus Forward initiative. "Just your e-signature, love," he urged, his voice tight with urgency. "The board's waiting." Amina's fingers grazed the device, her diamond ring catching the chandelier's light, a glittering lie beside her truth. She scrolled, her eyes scanning the jargon-laced trap, its legalese a maze meant to bury her. "Impressive," she said, her tone a quiet storm. "But you know I never rush." Mark's smile faltered, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "We need to move fast, Amina. The investors won't wait." She set the iPad down, her movements deliberate, and reached for her portfolio. Mark's eyes followed, his confidence unshaken, expecting her capitulation. Amina's thoughts drifted to her mother's braids, the rhythm of her voice. "Your roots are your strength." Those roots, Nigerian, unyielding, had built Nexus, turned algorithms into power. Mark's plot was a wound, but it had forged her into something fiercer. She slid the portfolio across the table, its leather gleaming like a guillotine's edge. "Open it," she said, her voice a command, her eyes locking with his. Mark's fingers hesitated, sensing the shift but too arrogant to retreat. The restaurant's elegance cocooned them, its diners oblivious to the war unfolding. Amina's heart beat steady, her black queen's resolve a fortress. She saw Chloe's face in her mind, her venomous taunt. "She'll be out on the street." And Mark's smug agreement. They'd underestimated her, mistaking her trust for weakness. But Amina was no pawn, she was the architect of their downfall. David's email, sent an hour ago, confirmed the termination notices were ready. The asset freezes in motion. The morality clause, a safeguard she'd insisted on, was her sword. Divorce papers, citing infidelity and fraud, were her shield. Mark and Chloe's gala would be a funeral. Amina leaned back, her jumpsuit stark against the velvet chair, her presence a silent thunder. Mark's fingers hovered over the portfolio, his smile a fragile mask. He still believed he'd won, that Amina's empire was his for the taking. But the Black Queen's wrath was a tide, rising unseen. Tayo's loyalty, David's precision, her mother's wisdom, they were her army. The city's lights beyond Aura's windows shimmered, a canvas of her triumphs. Mark's betrayal had cracked her heart, but it had forged her will. As he reached for the portfolio, Amina's lips curved, not in warmth but in anticipation. The game was hers, and his nightmare was about to begin. Mark Thompson's fingers brushed the leather portfolio, its sleek surface a promise of victory in Aura's gilded glow. The restaurant's velvet hum cloaked their table, but the air crackled with unspoken menace as Amina Okoro's eyes, dark and unyielding, locked onto his. Her white jumpsuit gleamed, a beacon of her power as a Black Queen, her diamond ring a glittering lie soon to be discarded. Mark's smile held, smug and certain, as he flipped open the portfolio, expecting Amina's e-signature to hand him Nexus Innovations. Instead, his breath caught, his face draining to ash. The pages screamed betrayal, termination notice, asset freeze order, divorce papers, with photos of him and Chloe by the infinity pool, their wine-soaked treachery frozen in time. Amina leaned back, her posture regal, her silence a guillotine poised to fall. Mark's eyes darted across the documents, each word a hammer to his dreams. "Amina," he stammered, his voice a frayed thread. "What? What is this?" The restaurant's murmurs faded, their table an island of reckoning. Amina's lips curved, not in warmth, but in cold triumph. "You dreamed of my fortune, Mark," she said, her voice a blade of ice. "You and Chloe plotted to steal my empire, to cast me out on the street, but this is my world." Her words, laced with the fire of her Nigerian roots, struck like thunder. "And this Black woman is your nightmare." Mark's hands trembled, the portfolio slipping as he fumbled through the pages. The termination notice was brutal. His COO contract was voided under the morality clause, his stock options were nullified, and his severance was erased. The asset freeze locked his accounts, his Tesla, his gilded life. The divorce papers, citing infidelity and fraud, were a final blow, the poolside photos a damning mirror to his deceit. Amina's voice cut through his panic. "Your Amex is dead," she said, her tone relentless. "The Teslas were repossessed tonight. You're barred from the Los Altos Hills house, and Chloe's termination email hit 10 minutes ago." Mark's eyes widened, his world crumbling in the span of a heartbeat. Two Nexus security guards materialized, their tailored suits looming behind him. The diner's whispers grew, their eyes flicking to the spectacle. But Amina's gaze never wavered. She was a Black Queen, forged in the crucible of her mother's Lagos lessons. Lead, never follow. That fire had built Nexus, her AI neural network, a beacon for global healthcare, a legacy Mark thought he could steal. She saw her mother's face, braiding her hair under a mango tree, her voice a melody of strength. "Your roots are your strength." Those roots, Nigerian, unyielding, now anchored her as she dismantled her betrayers. Mark's arrogance, Chloe's greed, they'd mistaken her trust for weakness, and now they'd pay. Mark's voice broke, a desperate rasp. "Amina, this is a mistake. We can talk." She cut him off, her eyes blazing. "You talked enough by the pool," she said, her words a lash. "You and Chloe planned my ruin, laughed at my fall, but I built Nexus from nothing, Mark. Every line of code, every deal, every triumph, mine." Her voice dropped, a deadly whisper. "You thought you could dethrone me? You forgot who I am." The guards stepped closer, their presence a silent command. Mark's face twisted, a mix of shock and rage, but his power was gone. his empire a mirage. Amina's thoughts flickered to Tayo Adeyemi, her Nigerian assistant, whose subtle hint had sharpened her blade. Tayo's text from an hour ago, "All set, Miss Okoro," was a spark of loyalty, a sisterhood rooted in their shared heritage. Amina had built more than a company. She'd built a legacy, one that lifted others like Tayo. Mark and Chloe's plot to cast her out, to leave her begging, was a delusion born of their inadequacy. She saw Chloe's face in her mind, her venomous taunt by the pool, and imagined her now, checking her email, finding her career in ashes. Amina's heart, once fractured, now thrummed with purpose. The guard's hands hovered near Mark's shoulders, ready to escort him out. "Amina, please," he whispered, his voice a ghost of the man who'd toasted his victory with Chloe. She tilted her head, her eyes cold as the city's fog. "You wanted my throne," she said. "Now you'll feel what it's like to have nothing." The words were justice, not vengeance, forged in the pain of his betrayal. The diner's gazes burned, their whispers a chorus to his humiliation. Mark's watch ticked, a useless relic of his fallen status. Amina remained seated, a black queen unmoved, her empire secure in her hands. As the guards nudged Mark to his feet, Amina's mind turned to the future. David Chen's legal precision, Tayo's loyalty, her mother's wisdom. They were her arsenal. The AI launch loomed, a testament to her vision, untarnished by Mark's greed. She'd protect it, protect Nexus, protect the legacy she'd built against all odds. The portfolio lay open, its pages a gravestone for Mark's dreams. Amina's diamond ring caught the chandelier's light, a lie she'd soon shed for the silver band's truth. The city beyond Ara's windows shimmered, a canvas of her power. Mark's nightmare was here, and she was its architect. Amina Okoro sat alone at the marble table in Aura, the restaurant's chandelier casting prisms across her white jumpsuit, a beacon of her unassailable power. The hum of elite diners resumed, their whispers a faint echo of Mark's disgrace, as the Nexus security guards escorted him out. His Patek Philippe watched a useless relic on his wrist. His final plea, "Amina, please," hung in the air, a ghost of his shattered ambition. She raised a hand, signaling the waiter with the poise of a black queen whose throne was never in doubt. "Alagavulan 16, she said, her voice steady, a quiet thunder. "You're strongest. I'm celebrating." The city's lights beyond the windows shimmered, a canvas of her triumphs, her empire intact. The waiter poured the amber liquid, its smoky scent curling like a promise of resilience. Amina sipped, the burn a mirror to the fire in her veins, forged by her Nigerian mother's words. Lead, never follow. Mark's betrayal, his plot with Chloe Vance to steal her shares and cast her out, had been a wound, but it had sharpened her into something fiercer. The leather portfolio lay open, its pages a tombstone for his dreams. Termination notice, asset freeze, divorce papers, poolside photos capturing his treachery. She dismantled him with precision, her mind as sharp as the code that built Nexus Innovations. Her diamond ring glinted, a lie she'd soon shed for the silver band's truth in her pocket. Her thoughts drifted to Tayo Adeyemi, her Nigerian assistant, whose subtle hint had been a spark in the dark. A text from Tayo buzzed her phone. "Chloe's out. Board notified. You're clear, Miss Okoro." Amina's lips curved, a faint smile of sisterhood. Tayo, with her Nigerian lilt and unyielding loyalty, was more than an assistant. She was a reflection of Amina's own fire, a young black woman carving her path in Silicon Valley's unforgiving terrain. Amina replied, "Thank you, Tayo. Join me at the AI launch." She'd mentor Tayo, lift her as she'd been lifted, a vow rooted in her heritage and the strength of Lagos's mango trees. The Lagavulin warmed her throat, its complexity a contrast to the Napa Valley Cabernet Mark and Chloe had toasted by the pool. Their arrogance, laughing at her supposed ruin, plotting to leave her out on the street, had been their undoing. Amina pictured Chloe now, opening her termination email, her career crumbling like ash. The marketing director's venom, her taunt of Amina begging, was a delusion born of greed. Amina's empire, Nexus, stood stronger than ever, its AI neural network poised to revolutionize healthcare. She'd built it from a dorm room dream, her Nigerian grit turning lines of code into power, defying every skeptic who doubted a black woman's place at the top. Her mind flashed to her mother, braiding her hair under Lagos's stars, her voice a melody of defiance. Your roots are your strength. Those roots had carried Amina through boardrooms that dismissed her, through investors who questioned her vision. Mark had stood beside her then, or so she thought, his charm a mask for envy. She lifted him to COO, shared her dreams, only to find a knife in his hand. His betrayal was a scar, but it had forged her into a warrior. The silver band in her pocket, her mother's heirloom, was a talisman of that strength, a reminder of who she was. Amina Okoro, daughter of Nigeria, queen of Silicon Valley. The restaurant's elegance cocooned her, its diners unaware of the war she'd won. She opened her phone, drafting an email to a nonprofit supporting black women in tech. I'm pledging mentorship, she typed, her fingers steady. Our voices must rise. She thought of the young innovators she'd inspire, faces like Tayo's, eager and fierce. Nexus wasn't just her empire. It was a beacon for those who'd follow, proof that a black woman could conquer the world's toughest arena. Mark and Chloe's plot had threatened that legacy, but she'd crushed it with the precision of a chess grandmaster, her moves calculated in David Chen's war room. The city's skyline glowed, a testament to her victories. Amina's heart, once fractured by Mark's treachery, now beat with purpose. The divorce papers would sever their bond, the asset freeze would strip his comforts, and the termination would erase his status. Chloe's fall was equally swift, her email a death knell to her ambitions. Amina's triumph wasn't vengeance. It was justice, a black queen reclaiming her throne. She sipped the Lagavulin again, its fire a mirror to her own. The board would rally behind her, the AI launch would cement her legacy, and Nexus would soar, untarnished by their greed. Amina stood, her jumpsuit stark against the velvet chair, and stepped toward the window. The city sprawled below, its lights a constellation of her power. She'd face the board soon, present the recording, and secure her empire. But tonight she savored this moment, alone but not lonely, a black queen whose light no one could dim. Her mother's voice echoed, lead, never follow. Mark and Chloe had dreamed of her ruin, but they'd awakened her wrath. The war was over, and Amina stood victorious, her empire a fortress, her future boundless. The Lagavulin glass sat empty, a silent toast to her unbreakable will. Amina Okoro's Tesla glided through the Los Altos Hills night, the mansion's glass walls gleaming like a beacon against the San Francisco Bay's distant shimmer. Inside, the air was still, the infinity pool's lapping waves a faint echo of Mark's shattered dreams. She stepped into the master bedroom, her white jumpsuit discarded for a silk robe, its ebony fabric a mirror to her unyielding spirit. The wedding photo that once adorned her nightstand was gone, replaced by a framed image of her mother in Lagos, her braids tight, her eyes fierce. Amina's fingers grazed the silver band in her pocket, her Nigerian talisman, its weight a vow. Lead, never follow. Her empire stood, untainted by betrayal, and she, a black queen, was its unbreakable heart. She moved to her desk, the laptop's glow casting shadows across the room. An email from David Chen awaited. Board briefed, recording presented, unanimous support for you. Mark and Chloe are out. Amina's lips curved, a quiet triumph. The morality clause had severed Mark's ties to Nexus. The asset freeze stripped his gilded life, and the divorce papers, filed with ruthless precision, erased him from her future. Chloe's termination had been swift, her career a smoldering ruin. Amina pictured her now, staring at a dead-end email in her opulent condo, her dreams of stealing Nexus's spotlight reduced to ash. The Black Queen's wrath had been absolute, a reckoning forged in fire. Her phone buzzed with a message from Tayo Adeyemi, her Nigerian assistant, whose loyalty had been a spark in the dark. AI launch prep complete, Miss Okoro. Venue ready for tomorrow's event. Amina replied, You're a star, Tayo. Lead the setup. Tayo's response was instant. For you, always. Amina's heart warmed. a rare softness amid her steel. Tayo, with her Nigerian lilt and fierce ambition, was a mirror to Amina's younger self, a reminder of the path she'd carved for Black women in Silicon Valley's unforgiving arena. She'd mentor Tayo, lift her as her mother had lifted her, a legacy rooted in Lagos's unyielding spirit. Amina opened another email, drafting a pledge to a nonprofit supporting Black women in tech. "I'm committing to mentorship," she wrote, her fingers steady. "Our voices will shape the future." She thought of the young innovators she'd address at tomorrow's Nexus event, faces like Tayo's, hungry for possibility. Nexus wasn't just a company, it was a beacon, proof that a Black woman could conquer the world's toughest stage. Her AI neural network, set to revolutionize healthcare, was days from launch, a testament to her vision. Mark and Chloe had thought they could steal it, cast her out on the street. They'd underestimated her Nigerian fire, her mother's mantra. "Your roots are your strength." She stood crossing to the glass wall overlooking the city. The bay's lights danced, a constellation of her victories. Her mind flashed to her mother, braiding her hair under Lagos's mango trees, her voice a melody of defiance. "The world will test you, Amina, but you are unbreakable." That strength had carried her through boardrooms that dismissed her Blackness, through investors who questioned her dreams. Mark had stood beside her then, his charm a lie she'd mistaken for love. His betrayal, plotting with Chloe to seize her shares, to leave her begging, had been a wound, but it had forged her into a warrior. The silver band, her mother's heirloom, was her anchor, its truth outshining the diamond ring she'd soon discard. The mansion's silence was a canvas for her thoughts. She saw Mark's face, pale and broken at aura, his pleas drowned by her justice. Chloe's malice, her taunt of Amina's ruin, had crumbled under the weight of a single email. Amina's empire stood, its foundations unshaken. She'd face the board tomorrow, present the AI launch, and solidify Nexus's dominance. But beyond that, she'd build more. Mentorship programs, scholarships, a legacy for Black innovators. Tayo's loyalty, David's precision, her mother's wisdom, they were her army, and she was their queen. The city below pulsed, a mirror to her power, her light undimmed. Amina stepped into the event hall the next evening, the Nexus logo glowing behind her. The crowd, young Black innovators, tech pioneers, allies, watched in awe. She took the stage, her presence commanding, her voice clear. "I built Nexus from nothing," she said, her Nigerian cadence a quiet force. "Against all odds, through every doubt, I turned code into power. You can too." The audience leaned forward, their faces alight with possibility. Tayo stood at the side, her tablet glowing, her pride a mirror to Amina's own. "Your roots are your strength," Amina continued, echoing her mother. "Let no one dim your light." The applause roared, a tide of affirmation for a Black queen who'd conquered betrayal and emerged stronger. She returned to the mansion, standing before the glass wall, the city's lights a tapestry of her legacy. The silver band rested in her hand, its weight a promise kept. Mark and Chloe's dreams of her ruin had become their own, their gala a forgotten fantasy. Amina's empire was hers alone, a fortress built on Nigerian grit and unyielding will. Her mother's voice rang clear, "Lead, never follow." She was Amina Okoro, daughter of Nigeria, queen of Silicon Valley, and her future was boundless. The glass reflected her silhouette, a Black queen unbroken, her light eternal. Amina Okoro's fire, unyielding and fierce, has carried us through a tale of betrayal and triumph, a Black queen's rise above those who dared to dim her light. Her story, rooted in Nigerian strength and Silicon Valley ambition, is yours to carry forward. What did Amina's journey stir in you? Share your thoughts. Her courage, her justice, her legacy deserve to be heard. Thank you for walking this path with her, for feeling the pulse of her unbreakable spirit. Until our next story, when we'll meet again to ignite new fires, keep shining, undimmed like Amina.